ESPN just dropped an absolute head-scratcher, and that's putting it lightly, of an article where they ranked all 32 NFL rosters, gave some analysis on each roster, while also projecting starting lineups for all 32 teams. So we're going to go portion by portion here, from the roster rankings to the analysis to their projected starting lineup, and I'll give you my thoughts along the way. The projected starting lineup at the end of the video is definitely something you're going to want to see, so stick around for that. Now, before we get to all that good stuff, you know I love my YouTube analytics. And last June, the Falcons Today channel here at Chat Sports brought in 195 new subscribers. This June, we have passed that for a lot of subs, 290. But I want to keep on climbing. So let's get ourselves to 23,000 subscribers. 290 is not a number to rest your laurels on. So if you have not subscribed yet, go ahead and do so today. Now let's check out ESPN's roster rankings 1 through wherever the Falcons are. So at number 1, they have the 49ers, which I know it's a hot take to put it ahead of the Chiefs, but I do think pound for pound, the 49ers have a better roster. Just Kansas City has this guy in the number 15 jersey. 3, they have the Ravens. 4, they have the Jets. What are they doing? No. I know Aaron Rodgers, but still, that is way too high for the New York Jets. 5, they have the Lions. 6, they have the Cowboys. Bengals at 7. Okay, I'm still not. I think it's a little bit on the high side for them. 8, Texans. 9, Bills. They lose Stephon Diggs, and they're still top 10. I actually don't hate it, but I'll be a hater for this segment. Eagles at 10 seems a bit on the low end for me. Dolphins at 11. Browns at 12. Packers at 13. Rams at 14. Jags at 15. Not going to have a strong opinion about any of those 5 spots right there. If someone's off, it's not off by much. Seattle at 16 definitely feels a little bit high, but whatever. Bears at 17. Steelers at 18. And then you get to the NFC South for the first time. Falcons at 19, Saints at 20. 19th for a team that finished 7-10 last year, I think it's okay. I understand that anytime a team or an outlet puts out an article that doesn't have your favorite team at number 1, we're going to get mad, we're going to get triggered, and that's our job as fans to do that. But if we're being honest, in a circle of trust here, they finished 7-10 last year, and you rank them 19th out of 32, I don't think they're very far off. So sure, if you want to say they're better than 19, fine, I'll buy that. But they're not far from 19. So for now, I think that's a very appropriate spot, if I'm being honest with you guys. Do I think they're the 19th best team in football? No, I think that they could end a lot higher than that, but they got to prove it first. And this defense has a lot to prove going into the season. So I think the defense is heavily weighing down this roster ranking. So with that being said, I want to put the over-under at 8.5 wins for the Falcons this season. Do you think they'll be an above 500 team, or will they finish 8-9 at best? I'm going to do the over on this one. I think it's a 10-7 crew. Let me know what your thoughts are for 8.5 wins for the Falcons this year. Now, let's look at their roster analysis for the Falcons. They gave out a couple of superlatives. First one was biggest strength. They had the offensive line. Could not agree more. No doubt, Atlanta's offensive line is the best part of their roster. Their worst player last year was still a top half player at his position group. Rookie left guard Matthew Bergeron, ranked 38th out of 80 qualifying guards according to Pro Football Focus. Yes, you have a top 5 guard in Chris Lindstrom. You have really good bookend tackles in Jake Matthews and Caleb McGarry. Drew Dahlman's been playing good football the last 2 years. Quietly, he's in line for an extension soon. Yeah, Atlanta's offensive line, definitely their biggest strength. Their biggest weakness, per the folks in Bristol, edge rusher. Not going to argue this one at all. Like, they have absolutely been spot on with their first 2 awards given right here. Maybe you could twist my arm and say cornerback, but I don't think it's that big of a difference, right? The edge rusher unit is definitely a cause for concern for the Falcons. They are banking on Arnold Ebiketie getting a larger role and being more productive this year. Lorenzo Carter getting back into the starting mix, maybe rejuvenating him a little bit. Then you got the youngins, Zach Harrison, Braylon Trice, third-round pick last year and a third-round pick this year. Can they be contributors early on in their career? There are a lot of hopeful wishings going on in the Falcons' edge rusher department, and I think it's fair to say it's their biggest weakness. The X factor they had, wide receiver Darnell Mooney. I also like this pick a lot for the Falcons because Darnell Mooney can either be a 450-yard receiver like he was last year in Chicago, or he could be a 1,000-yard guy like he was his second year in Chicago. Look at the stats for Darnell Mooney. Really good first 2 years with the Bears. Not so good last 2 years with the Bears. But if the Falcons can recapture that 2021 version of Mooney, a 1,000-yard receiver, 8 touchdowns combined in his first 2 years, toss that in with Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts, and oh yeah, Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney could be the guy that kind of puts this offense over the edge. So I'm very much on board with him being the X factor, where if he does not live up to the free agent contract he signed, it'll be tough sledding for Drake London because he'll be yet again somewhat alone in the wide receiver room, and teams are going to zero in on him, especially when you factor in the fact that the Falcons are going to be passing the ball a lot more than they were the last few years. They're going to need not just one good receiver, but 2 to 3. Insert Darnell Mooney. Now, they picked a non-starter to know, and they went with backup tight end Charlie Woerner. My initial reaction to this, like, really? Charlie Werner's the starter to know, the backup starter to know, or the non-starter, I'm so sorry, non-starter to know. I guess it's tough to find a non-starter that you have to know, but Charlie Woerner is going to be a big part of the run blocking game. Now, I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets, but Kyle Pitts has had some injuries that, throughout his career a little bit here and there, so maybe Charlie Woerner kind of grows into a larger role. He's never been much of a receiving threat, though. In his entire career, just 11 grabs for 120 yards. I don't think we're going to see those numbers skyrocket this year, so I could buy him having a pretty good role in the run blocking department. If it's not Charlie Woerner for a non-starter to know, another name could be someone like Mike Hughes, who I think will be a backup cornerback and maybe plays a good amount of special teams. But Charlie Woerner, that's the non-starter to know. Now, we're going to look at more of this roster breakdown along with projected lineups for the Falcons. But some trivia here as we continue our summer of trivia. Receiving touchdowns from 2016 to 2018. Julio Jones had 17 in that time span. Mohamed Sanu had 13. I want to know who came in at third with 11, just ahead of Austin Hooper and Calvin Ridley. Let me know who this mystery man is in the comment section. We will reveal the answer later on in the video. Now let's get to my favorite part of today's video, which is ESPN's projected starters. At quarterback, Kirk Cousins. The offense is very chalk, as it should be. They didn't need to put out a hot take here. Bijan, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, Kyle Pitts. Just a bunch of no-brainers. Same goes for the offensive line as well. It's the usual 5. Matthews, Bergeron, Dahlman, Lindstrom, McGarry. The offense is 100% correct. The defense, oh man, whoever put this together clearly did not watch the Falcons last year. So, got Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, correct. Then they've got rookie defensive tackle Ruke Orhorhoro. Not on board with that. But that's not the most egregious thing that they did, actually. So I'm not going to get too fiery about that. Now we get to the linebackers. And this is where someone needs to lose their job. They've got Lorenzo Carter and Zach Harrison. Starters, Zach Harrison is not an edge rusher. Like, he is not an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. He is a hand in the ground, a defensive end, a 5 technique player. He is not someone you want to drop in coverage, as outside linebackers tend to do from time to time. So, already we have some red flags going off. But if you might notice, certain someone's name has not been listed. They just forgot that Arnold Ebiketie existed. The only player on this roster who had 6 sacks last year, the highest returning sack leader on this team, is not starting in Bristol, Connecticut. Mistakes happen. I make mistakes. I make mistakes on this channel all the time. But to forget the number 1 pass rusher on a team that has very little pass rushers, that's a fireable offense. Someone's got to clear out the desk. Let's get the box. Let's get security. Hank from The Office. I think he died, actually, so don't get Hank. Someone else. Off he goes. Because Arnold Ebiketie last year is absolutely coming back to start this year. You don't let Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell walk in free agency, who had 6.5 sacks each last year, and then turn to the only man that had 6 on the current roster and go, hey, bud, we're just not going to start you. We're going to go with Zach Harrison because I know he's a defensive end, but, man, we really want to put him at outside linebacker. This is just, unfortunately, a product of sometimes the major sports outlets that cover the entire league and country when they get specific for a team, there are mistakes. Which is why, self-plug, subscribe to the channel, because sure, I'll make a goof up from time to time. I'm not forgetting about Arnold Ebiketie. I can promise you that much. I might say Dallas Turner is a Falcon, but I'm sure as hell not going to forget. I think Kirk Cousins is on this team, right? Was he going to start this year? Like, no, that was egregious by them. That is the worst of it. That's not all of it, though. Let's move on to the secondary. Thankfully, they have A.J. Terrell. Then this would have been a big issue. They got Clark Phillips. Then they got Mike Hughes, which I don't think you're wrong. Like, you are wrong for excluding Arnold Ebiketie. I don't think you're correct, if that makes some sense. That's like a horrible ESPN, like, as we talk about ESPN take here, like a Booger McFarland. More games are lost than they are won in the NFL, which I actually somewhat agreed with. But regardless, D. Alford is the starting nickel cornerback on this team. He played that role much of last year, and we saw Mike Hughes get into the slot a good chunk last year as well. But I think D. Alford kind of won that job. A season ago, 41 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 6 pass breakups. If there is a spot Mike Hughes could start at, I don't think it's in D. Alford's spot. I think it would be in Clark Phillips' spot at CB2 as an outside corner. So they just forgot D. Alford, and they put Mike Hughes because that was a first-round pick. D. Alford played in the CFL. Oh, sure, the first-round pick will start. No, I think that if you watch or talk to people that actually watch this team, they would say Terrell, Phillips, and Alford are the starting 3 cornerbacks. So the biggest mistakes, just omitting Arnold Ebiketie altogether. They put Zach Harrison at edge when he's not an edge. He's not an outside linebacker. He's a defensive end, which I know that the term edge can be widely used and like applied to all, and it encompasses everything. But when we get specific about the defense, I do think we have to take the bracket of edge off a little bit and say if it's a defensive end or an outside linebacker when talking about who's starting. And Zach Harrison is not starting at outside linebacker because there is no position just called edge on the defense. Starting second-round pick Ruke Orhorhoro, no, it'll be Zach Harrison. Like, Ruke Orhorhoro is going to be an interior defensive lineman. He's not going to be starting outside, which in this lineup, he'd have to be because you're sure as hell not putting your nose tackle, David Onyemata, as a 5-technique defensive end. And then finally, they have Mike Hughes over Clark Phillips. I just disagree with this. Like, these ones are just kind of wrong. This one's just a difference of opinion, but I'm not going to be too upset about that one. Now, before we get out of here, just kind of an off-the-wall question. What's your favorite outlet for Falcons content? Whether it's us or if it's someone else, I just want to know where you like to go to get your Falcons news and rumors and where you like to get content on your favorite NFL team during the offseason and even in the season. Now, let's get back to our trivia question to wrap up today's show. Who is third in receiving touchdowns from 2016 to 18, the last time this team played good football? Julio Jones at 1, Mohamed Sanu at 2, Hooper at 4th with Calvin Ridley. Drum roll, please. Kind of surprised me a little bit. It's running back Tevin Coleman. 11 touchdowns, receiving touchdowns. Yes, receiving touchdowns for Tevin Coleman from 2016 to 2018. That's good for third in that 3-year time span for the Falcons. So that will do it for us on today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed our episode. If you did, give us a like, leave a comment, and we'll see everyone later.